one of the commitments we look for from men of value, um, and we actually listed it there, is that we're conversationalists. So there is what I'm hoping is innate, but if it's not, there should be an intentional willingness to communicate. And we put that on there, guys, because when you look back, you can read almost any article you read, especially where things have gone very wrong for men, even to the extreme where there's been institutionalization of men, and so on. You often find that speaking is the one weakness that people succumb to. So because I don't speak, because of my non-willingness to speak and communicate, I put a hand on a woman because I just couldn't speak this with my colleagues or friends, and I couldn't handle the pressure. People who do bodily harm to themselves, oftentimes you don't have a safe place, you don't communicate. So I think Vic was saying that we're creating here a safe space, and we don't say this tongue in cheek. We say it with 100% certainty. So yes, we do expect everyone to raise their hand and speak, but we also want you to feel that, wow, there's this men of value thing. And even if I have to hold something back from today until the next event happens, I know there's that one place. We want that one place where you can speak to be this place. We will look for others. You will learn in time. You'll speak more, because a big weakness for men globally, all research speaks around that. However, use this opportunity, guys. This is a safe space, and we purposely make this men only, because we don't want someone to ever say, hey, no, I did raise my hand to a woman the other day, and then the world ends. This is not a platform like that. This is a platform where we say, bring out the dirty, bring out the ugly, let's deal with it. And to Vic's point, you now have a base of men
Serene,
who are not just becoming men of value, but they are also assisting you in becoming that man of value, because they grab your hand, walk the journey with you. I'm hoping that makes some sense, but that's really, and you'll see when you read, and even our guest speakers, they always speak about the importance of brotherhood. This is the brotherhood. This is that self space. Let us use this opportunity to speak. And I wanted to say that so no one feels they shouldn't speak, and you know that you have to speak, but so that when you watch this video, you can also be brutally honest, or about yourself, be brutally honest. Feel this is that one place where I can speak. Thanks a lot, guys.
Nice one, Derek. Okay, here we go. I hope you can all hear this. If you can't, please tell me.
Serene, how's dating going for you after the divorce?
Challenging. It's very challenging. Just being, divorced for 6 years now is kind of hard, because I have standards and values that I uphold, and I'm looking for someone that can stand with me with those standards and values. Growing up, we always thought as women, oh, he has a job, he's a provider. That's good enough, but I think it's beyond that. It's more than that entailed. So I want to know from you, how do us women identify quality men?
Here's the one quality you want a man to have. Does he do what he says he's going to do? If he says he's gonna call you and he don't ever call you when he say he gonna call you, why are we talking to him? If he says he's coming at a certain time and he repeatedly doesn't show up, why are we still talking to him? What are you talking to a guy who does not do what he says he's gonna do except occasionally?
Yes.
Because suppose it is the one occasion where you really need him. And it's just one of them occasions where he just ain't coming.
Right.
Do you understand how important that is?
I definitely understand how important that is. That's why I block you when you don't call me back. When you say you're gonna do it, I expect you to do it. So if you don't, I'm gonna block you.
Now one time you got at least hear what
I give them a couple of chances.
But
when I see a repeat offender,
that's a bad pattern.
I block you.
That's a bad pattern. Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. Now, ladies, let me give you this one right here. If you're in a relationship with a guy and you're talking about a problem you might have, men by nature, the one thing we fixers. See, when we talking to our wife, our woman, and she tell us a problem, we try to provide a solution right now. You know why we want a solution? So we can quit talking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we know tomorrow's gonna be some more stuff. So let me just provide a solution for the problem so we can move on. Here's when you know you have nothing. It's if every time you mention any type of problem to this guy, he offers you nothing. There's no solution, there's no assistance. I'm not talking about give you money, but I'm talking about sitting down, trying to help you work through the problem. If you have a problem in school, let me help you through school. You have a problem with your kids, well, why don't you try this? Your car break down, hey, let me show you how to get that. If you dating a guy and you have a car, and your car stay nasty, and he keep getting in it, what you dating him for?
Right.
Do you know that?
Right.
If you have a problem and you present it to him, and he never offers you a solution, try to solve the problem, what you dating him for?
Right, right.
If he never does what he says he's gonna do,
Right.
why are you dating him? Stop. Take your cookie, put it back in the box, put the wrapper on it,
Yeah,
and go on about your business.
right.
Because he gonna keep.
Right. I agree.
Hey,
I think you're on mute, Vic.
Sorry, I've been doing this all day. I think what you hear there is the opposite around things that as men and that we do that affect women, right? So, you know, and the big one there is, do you do what you say you're gonna do? So that's a very sort of specific and personal one. I'll kick off for 1 minute. When I started going into business, before that, one of the things that my wife and I used to do quite consistently was manage our finances together. We've done that for the last 8 or 9 years of our marriage before I went into business. And when I went into business, because business is as tough as it is, I decided that I would handle this on my own. And one of the things that I discovered that my wife may not have said hurts her, but after a certain series of events, I realized, wow, I was so wrong about this, is that I tried to manage my own personal finances for our home myself. So when there were good times, great, but when there were crap times, I handled it myself. And it took me up until recently to just go to my wife and say to her, look, you know, I'm challenged this month. And she asked me and said, well, you know, why wouldn't you tell me? And sometimes we forget that in the relationships that we have, a lot of it is the things that we don't do that hurt the people that we care about, and particularly our women that we care about as men. Whether that's in a marital relationship or whether that's in a dating relationship where you think you are serious, what we need to be keeping in mind consistently is, what are we doing to hurt somebody, right? And I'm not even talking about our children. So that was my recent experience. And the transformation was that the moment when, you know, I came back to her and opened my books and she opened her books, it's renewed our relationship 1,000 times fold, right? Because now we're partners, we're a team. We're resolving whatever challenges together, as opposed to me trying to do it on my own because I am the man and the provider. So that was my recent realization, that I have not, you know, taken this into account. Who's going to open up and just give us a sense of their experience so that we can start learning from each other? And I wanted to say welcome to Mzwandile, who joined. Thank you, Mzwandile. Mzwandile is a regular. And I think I welcomed Petrus. For those of you who are new, just as a quick reminder, please stick your names and telephone numbers on the chat group so that we can add you to the WhatsApp group. Who would like to talk about a personal experience or a general experience? Maybe I'll throw a controversial one out there so that people can speak about it. The way we are hurting our women as men is that we are not talking about the problems that exist. Whether that problem is in relation to, I have a friend who impregnated somebody who is not being responsible to that child, or whether it's I have a friend who is hitting somebody and I don't say anything to them. We're not speaking. Oh, Cesar is going to kick us off. Great, Cesar.
Evening, everyone. I just want to be clear. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, cool. Mine is not necessarily mine is more of a story or something that I've learned. I think I learned it recently over observing a series of events. And it was mainly observing a friend of mine. So we kind of had a discussion after a couple of events, and a lot of it had to do, a lot of this conversation came about just because of the way he is in his relationship. And the discussion was basically because we spoke at one time, I think it was at my birthday, where we went to this kind of lake and we were just reflecting on life and had like a moment of reflection during lockdown. And we were kind of speaking about, and I think I grew closer to, our friendships kind of grew closer because the things that we were speaking about were things that men don't really have the platform to speak about, not because the platform isn't there, but it was more of a thing of what you feel you would get judged for if you say it. And from that moment, I realized that, as Uncle Derek was saying earlier, that communication is a very big thing. What we realized recently, when there was a bit of an altercation between him and his significant other, was that this burden of that term, when people say, whenever something happens, be a man about it and grow up, or be a man and move on, or brush it off and just say it is what it is, or we move. That term "we move" is the one that gets me the most, because when you say we move and you just brush it to the side, you're not really moving. You're kind of still in neutral and you haven't gone from and actually dealt with the situation. And so we realized that because now it's affecting the way he actually communicates in his relationship. And so when things go south, it's not physical, but you can see that it's not only a burden to him not being able to share, but it's also a burden to that person. And he was telling me that no, he's struggling to kind of speak about things because of fear, because of his pride. And he thinks that as a man, when they say be a man about it, his pride is on the line, his ego is on the line. And I kind of told him, like, I don't think it's pride or ego necessarily. I think it's fear of the consequence of speaking what you feel inside because of how you're going to be judged, not only as a person, but as a man. And you might seem like you're weaker for it, because you shed a tear, or because now you're in a situation where you're vulnerable. But the one thing I told him is that there's actually power in vulnerability, because that's when you actually realize that being a man doesn't only mean that you account to yourself, but being a man, you can find strength in your weaknesses and actually work on them. And that's how you better yourself as a man. So there's just something that I just wanted to share, because I kind of actually noticed it 2 weeks ago when I was with my group of friends.
No, nice one, Cesar. And that was me, by the way, exactly the same. I felt the fact that finances are my issue. I need to man up. The difficult times I'm alone because I don't want to say anything. Because if I say something, what will they say? Because if they see me, they'll expect me to be the man. Why am I, all that. Truly understand. But it's amazing how wrong we are with those instances when we just then pour ourselves out. The kind of support or the kind of perception is not anywhere near what we thought it would be. Nice one. Nice one.
Wow,
Nice one.
guys, this is really brilliant, and thanks, Caesar, for sharing that. And you actually said power and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And isn't it so interesting how the first two examples, stories, or testimonials, whatever you want to call it, that Caesar and Viguela have told us, probably is summed up with those words right there: power and vulnerability.
Gotta be.
When you step off that high horse that either you put yourself on or society has put yourself on, you realize that's not where the power was anyway. The real power is when I was vulnerable enough to let others in.
Yeah.
And in that vulnerability, then you now move to a higher plane than what you were on as a soul warrior. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, guys.
Derek, I think one of the things that we forget is that in order to receive, in order to give something, your hands have to be open, right? You have to give somebody something, your hands have to be open. You can't give somebody anything with clenched fists. In order to receive, your hands have to be open. So the vulnerability of reception is as powerful as the vulnerability of giving. And we miss that. I had a friend who said to me, Vic, your hands are always closed. You don't receive. So when somebody says something to you and says, hey, I'd like to give you something, say thank you. Be emotional about it and say thank you, but don't now say, oh, you didn't have to, and why are you, and you should, because that sees where is the other aspect of this thing of us manning about it. Because when we man about it, we don't want to receive. We want to be the, you know, the straightforward and upfront people. So we've got to, as men, we've got to learn to give and receive in the same way, the hands in the same position. And that's what creates the vulnerability. And then it's a skill because you get better at it. The more you do it, the more you get better at it. But when you don't do it, it's really hard at the beginning. Thank you, folks. Anyone else, please? Anyone else? Look, folks, here's one. How do you talk to people? You know, your talking is one thing when words come out. But tone and manner is very, very important. I think one of the things that we've got right in my wife and I's relationship is we start not with what we want to say, but we start with the pet name, or we start with, you know, love of my life, my baby, my sweetheart, and it softens everything. Not all the time, don't get me wrong, but that, how do you talk as a man? How do you talk to your sister? How do you talk to your grandmother? How do you show reverence? Josh, Josh's hand went up, and is it Mbulelo? Mbulelo.
Yes, good morning, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I had when someone say come here, or they came like they came to me, I get so anxious, and like I don't know, like when I talk, some would say, what is he talking about? Or let's say when I go to that someone and ask him or her about how your day was been.
Yeah.
So I have this problem, like I need to know my roots as a man, where I'm coming from, because I know I have a father, but I know that he's not here, like in my life. So I need to make that that exception, that when I talk to my mother about it, she will say that my father doesn't wanna speak with me, or doesn't wanna visit. You see, so I don't know if it's that the right thing, or can a young man hold it into like put it, like, I'm gonna say this, like hold it in to himself, that I must do this, but when I do this, how people gonna react, or how mama's gonna react.
Yeah.
You see, that's my
biggest
concern.
Yeah, I got you, Mbulelo. Derek, I think it's a combination of two things. it's Mulelo's talking about the absence of his father, but also, how that's affecting his sense of confidence, and his ability to speak, because it's residing, within him, and should he, can you hold that within you, or is it something that he needs to deal with, kind of scenario? I don't know if you're still there.
Yeah, very interesting question, Mulelo. And I think when we sit around here, and guys, please interject, because this is not Vic and Derek's show by any means. I think, again, if one looks at the research, and it touches on what I was saying as well, that you need to speak, you need to communicate. So if you have a particular challenge, might it not be an idea to actually speak about that challenge as it is? I'm sitting here as Mulelo, and I've got a really big issue around, however you want to phrase it, whether it's abandonment or but there's an issue there, and it's a real issue, and very much almost the spine of a lot of the issues that pivot around the men of value challenges that we have. So it's a very real issue. And thanks so much, Mulelo, for bringing it up.
No, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
Sometimes testing the waters is not bad. Would one consider maybe testing the waters verbally before you test them physically and more? A simple example. Most of us have sat there, and there was a lovely lady who just didn't have the courage. At one day, at some point, whether you had to send a friend, or you went yourself, or you sent a WhatsApp, but at some point, you test those waters. And I think you've already shown that you can test those waters by speaking to us.
Yep.
You've told us in these waters that I have this challenge and I'd like to do with it. It might just be an idea with your mom and those around you that you trust to say, look, this is the challenge I have. This is my thinking. Let me be vulnerable so that I can be empowered by vulnerability and get feedback on this.
Yeah.
So that you're not sitting alone and trying to find other safe areas. You've come out to us in this safe area. Give it a go in a safe area with your mom. That kind of, in a way, of advice. Culturally, it's always tricky, Culturally, it's always tricky. But I think in terms of the challenges we have as men, raising kids is right up there. And we talk about that every time we meet. So we are all well within our rights to raise our hand and speak about those issues. Even if there's issue about yourself, very right to raise those issues. So that's just one angle. I mean, the guys will come up with others. But most definitely, speaking, as I said earlier, in most cases becomes the start and the end, because it's that important.
I believe conversation is important, and there's no statute of limitations. Sometimes you talk about the same thing for years until the penny drops. So I do believe in conversation. Joshua.
Yeah, just to touch on the topic of communication, I think it's also super important to have some sort of internal communication as well. And I know as men, it can be quite difficult to do that sometimes, because we get very focused on, like Steve Harvey was saying, we're fixers, right? So we want to fix things, we want to work on things, we want to solve problems. And sometimes we get so fixated on doing that, or whether it be in the form of our career, or whether it be in the form of like a relationship that we're in, or whatever it may be, we get so fixated on that we don't really take time to communicate internally with ourselves. And what I found from my experience is sometimes I will start feeling certain feelings or emotions and stuff, and it's difficult to address that, because when you start feeling those emotions, the easy thing to do is to kind of act on it, right? So if you're feeling anxiety, the easy thing is to, when someone wants to speak to you, or when you have some sort of obligation to fulfill in a relationship, it becomes easier to do things like to become snappy, or to kind of let your emotions spill out in like negative ways. And what's a lot more difficult is to kind of sit with those emotions and kind of explore them. And what I feel like I'm learning in terms of like being able to handle that is to kind of view emotions as like triggers, right? So if I'm feeling anxious about something, or if I'm feeling like something's wrong, like I'm waking up in the morning and there's this pit in my stomach every morning, those things, what's helped me is to kind of like view them as triggers, that something's off balance. And that's my time to kind of reflect and like think about, okay, what's off balance? Why am I feeling this way? And the more you do that, the more you start to pick up on certain patterns, right? So certain things that you repeat, or certain experiences that keep on happening to you, or maybe certain emotions keep repeating themselves. And the more you explore it, the more you start to identify the things that you need to learn, or maybe sometimes even unlearn. So I just wanted to bring that up, just in terms of that like internal communication, and also the discussion of emotions, and how it's easy for us as men. And I think that's where we go wrong a lot of the time, is we don't really confront those emotions, and we let them spill over in other ways, whether it be fighting, like physical abuse, or whether it be mental, emotional abuse, or just not treating people with love, and respect. So
And that's Josh, how we sometimes hurt our women and children, by not being vulnerable enough to say, listen, I'm not in a good spot right now. I'm not sure what's going on. I need a little bit of time, as you were saying, to just go in and reflect on it. When we withhold from our women and children, that's how we hurt them. We hurt them with the withdrawal, with them not knowing. And now they start questioning themselves. Is it something I did wrong? Right? When your mood changes and you're not honest and vulnerable enough with that mood change to be able to say, this is the situation I'm going through, to make and alleviate them from feeling that it's something that they've done. I know when I'm in a funny mood, my daughter looks at me and says, what's wrong? And when the way she asks what's wrong is almost like, did she do something wrong? And that's because I haven't said, hey, listen, sweetheart, daddy's just not in a good mood, or daddy's not feeling very well just now. What does daddy need? Just maybe 5 minutes of sleep. Okay, then it's different. Thank you, Josh. Good point. Avella.
Thank you, man. I want to acknowledge the previous speakers before me. What they've said, it's really powerful, because I've...
Oh no, Avella, move around a little bit. Move around. Move around a little bit.
When I'm listening to things that I've been doing, no, I'm just saying, I just want to acknowledge the speakers before me. What they've said, it's really powerful, and I think I'm growing to learn from this platform, because I think there were lots of things that I wasn't doing okay. Yeah, that's that.
No, nice one, Avella. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that. And that's the whole idea on this platform, for us to share things that are, pertinent to us, and particularly things that we can learn from each other. I'd just like to welcome Tebogo Majokana. He's been our guest speaker on a couple of occasions in Men of Value. Yeah, he also runs Blominati radio station, which you can stream, but he also runs Let's Talk My Gents program for gentlemen and young men. And Tebogo, we were just talking about the subject matter, which is, what are the kind of things that we do that that hurt our women and children, and sometimes they're things that we're not conscious of, and we've come up with a few. The young ones, maybe what the younger folks on the group. Paul Dingani, I hope, or Dingan rather, I hope I acknowledged you. Thanks for joining. And please, if you're new, no, Paul, you're not new. I think you've been here before. So what else, folks? Let's really introspect here. What are the kind of other things that we could be finding ourselves doing without realizing? I don't know if Tebogo, you've got anything on the subject that you want to mention. If you do, you're on mute.
I want to say thank you very much. And the only thing that I just came in now, so I don't know what other people have said, but I think in terms of things that we do that we might not even see, it's the actions around our kids. You know, there's bad actions that there's no word coming out, but there's action where you are home as a father, but you're not engaged physically, psychologically, but you're there. And that thing, it's also killing to our wives and kids to say this person is here, but is not even engaging with us. Might be to engage watching soccer, being on the phone, or just being in their own space. So the no communication body language is a harmful one to our families. I think we also need to be very vocal about how we feel and how we're doing things, especially coming back from work. You're coming back from work, having had a bad day, but when you get home and they ask you, and I've always said to a lot of guys that let's stop saying we're fine when we're not fine. So if we can start taking that word fine out of our vocab, it will make a lot of things very easy for us. When you suppose be honest with your feelings. Don't say I'm fine, whereas you know that you might have lost a big business deal, you might have had a bad day, you might be just feeling like I don't want to talk to anyone. Just be honest and say to your wife, you know what, can I go stay in my room for this hour and then I'll come back after an hour. I need to cool off of the things that happen instead of you sitting with them and being in a very foul mood. That's my 2 cents worth.
No, nice one. Thank you, Tebo. Very true. Very true. Petrus, welcome to you too.
Hi, good evening again, and thanks to the previous speakers. What just said by the last speaker, it's so true, because what happening during the day when you're at work, if you don't talk about it when you get home, it's actually impacting the relationship at home. So one thing that I've realized from my side is, you know, when you are a public servant, there's a lot of things happening dealing with public. So you have to be that person who actually talk about it so that it shouldn't have an impact at home, especially when you have due dates from work to submit or whatever reports that you need to do. One thing that we do as men is when you get home, you forget about the family. You just go to your laptop and try to catch up, and you'll find a wife is actually busy cooking, washing dishes. You don't take the courtesy of saying, "Let me help," by maybe cooking also, or maybe just cleaning the kitchen. So it's something that we should actually take as men to understand that that little thing that you do has an impact at all.
Yeah, no, thank you, Petrus. Thank you very much. I think we sometimes underestimate what the word protect means. Is if the role of the man in his masculinity is to provide, protect, and lead, we take protection as excuse me, as the external physical act of fighting against or protecting against something. But protecting this thing, inclusio, it's tough, you know, and it's a responsibility we have to protect our women's and our children's hearts. Exactly what you said, Tebogo, around not being present. That tears their hearts apart, right? Not helping, not participating, not being involved, not communicating. That tears them apart. So we must remember, protection is not just a physical protection. It's protecting who they are and how they feel. So our behaviors need to reflect that. You know, there's a word that I watched somewhere else that Steve Harvey talks about when he talks about respect. How are we hurting our women, our children? Because we don't respect them. And when you don't come home and you open your laptop and you don't talk and you don't express your financial challenges or your personal challenges or whatever, then they don't know how to respond to that. They don't know how to, they try to dig and they don't know how to help. Can I change the subject a little bit? Not change the subject, change the course of the direction. I want us, we've talked a lot of very personal things, but in the process of engaging with society as a whole, how do we harm or hurt our women and children? And one of the ways I'd like to ask is, there's a thing that's going around about wokeness that's around things that we shouldn't say or shouldn't do, right? Or things that we don't get involved in. So when we are with our friends and the person talks badly to their partner or their spouse or their wife or whatever it is, we don't say anything because it's inappropriate to say something, right? When somebody cracks a joke or sends a video or a whatever over WhatsApp that you know is defamatory, nobody goes back to the person and says, don't ever do that about me. What are your views on those kind of subjects? Because as men, we don't just step in our own parameters. We have to step in within the community, within the region. And how do we do that as men? Any views, any points? Harold, you normally say something. You're very quiet today. Malemo, what's your view? I'd like to get your views as well. Particularly you young guys. How are you handling knowing that, you know, you have a friend who's, you know, married but might be doing things on the side, but we don't say anything, right? We've got children on the side, but we don't say anything. He's hitting his wife and children, but we don't say anything. He's verbally abusing, but we don't say anything. Cracking bad jokes, but we do. How do we handle that? Aaron.
Good evening, good people. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Aaron.
Okay, nice. I was really speechless, you know, but being motivated throughout the session, you know. So you're talking about how do we react to a man verbally abusing or physical abusing a woman. It's really hard considering that it's what the society expects a man to do. I've realized that most recently that it's terms of the culture that men grow up and saying that if a woman is disrespectful to you, you must hit them. One of these days, past few days, a woman was being hit by a man, and I was standing to two old ladies, and I was waiting for their comment, and then those ladies just said that she was being disrespectful, so she deserved to be beaten up. So that's the kind of perception that we seem to have, and people not reporting because yeah, I don't know how to say this, but yeah, surely you have to get my point. So it's really being torn because sometimes you can report, but then you're breaking a family anyway. So yeah, someone who's a sole provider. So yeah.
You know, Aaron, thanks for that, and thanks for sharing that. That's pretty powerful. But I'm disconcerted because I know how young you are, and if you at your age are still witnessing stuff like that, which we should have moved on from many years ago, and hearing that's a really sad place for us, for all of us to be in as men, because it is incumbent for us to defend and protect. And if society is still teaching that, that's sad. It's not good in any way.
Yeah. Wow, that's something. I mean, I think Vic and I, slightly older within the group, but I think I would share those sentiments as well, Vic, that I was surprised that Aaron, and I don't know what the age groups of the people you were witnessing, but the people you were around, I take it, were younger people. I'll take it. And I guess society hasn't gotten to a point where we say, not in my name, no matter what, no matter where. And I guess that's partly why we have environments and sessions like we have here, is to kind of say, okay, well, what are some of the tools at our disposal? And you make a good point, Aaron. You go report something, there's a court case, you go to court, you get a guy arrested. That's the same family that you might not be able to look in the eyes a year later because they're breadwinner and so you're looking at real life situations, and I like that. And that we're having a discussion of this nature, because that's what this session is about. It's about being real, guys, being very real. And I don't know what suggestions we can throw out there, but I have to say, I also am a bit surprised that there isn't a young people almost wave that says, not in my name. And it might be there, and it may not be something we as men of value do. But you'd hope that over time, because remember, there was a time and there are certain laws that even allowed men to hit women, you know? So we've moved beyond that. And it'd be great if society moves beyond that. And we will probably have to have a session together here, guys, where we chat around action steps. And we don't want to have a situation where someone from Men of Value, yes, you guys told me that next time a guy wants to hit his woman at a restaurant, I must step in there, and next thing you're stabbed. You know, this is the sort of things that we do need to discuss. And it becomes important to say, what are the tools? Especially considering that something can stay in your mind long after it's happened. The next question becomes, why is it still bothering me? You know what I mean? If it happened a week ago, 2 weeks ago, why am I even thinking about it? So much has happened in 2 weeks. It's probably because there's a disjoint. And we need to arm ourselves with the tools collectively, through society, through other groups, that allow us to be active in trying to drive some of these behavioral changes. But that's probably a discussion for another day, but very interesting, Aaron, very interesting.
I think, folks, one of the challenges that we have as men today is that we don't do things in numbers, right? When you look at lions and you look at, you know, the animal kingdom, they hunt in packs, they hunt in numbers. There used to be a time where, and I witnessed this many, many, many years ago, where we were all at a traffic light and we saw a guy trying to attack an elderly lady. And about 20 of us jumped out of our cars and we went after this guy, right? And I think what's happened in society lately is that, you know, if Aaron steps out, he feels alone, right? Because there are people in the back going, she deserves it, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, Derek, one of the challenges is that we're not, as men, we're not moving in numbers. When we witness something and I get out of my car to go and help, I'm expecting every other car with a man in it to stop and get out as well, because they don't want to see something like that, right? When a child goes missing, I'm expecting the entire community of men. I haven't seen it. You remember the days when a child goes missing and the whole community comes out and goes looking in the forest for the child? When last did you see that? When last did you see communities coming out and just saying, we're dealing with this issue, right? And that's why we have 13 or 22 kids killed in a tavern, this, that, and the other, right? Because the challenge that we are having, men, is that there's a great quote from Martin Luther King, is that those who believe in peace must organize in the same way as those who believe in war. And the challenge about us as men is that we're not organizing ourselves in the same way as those who are perpetrators are organizing themselves. So it's incumbent for us to start, to your point, Derek, shifting our mindset around how we say, what we say and what we do. And when something is wrong, we call it out, and I know I've got a backing of 20 people who are going to say, yes, I fully agree. Anybody else? Let's have a few others. Paul, let's try and have everybody say a word or two. Herman, I don't know if you've said something. Malemo, anybody else? Aaron raised his hand again. Well done, Aaron.
So
Is it Aaron on my left? Oh, it's Aaron.
it's me. Can you hear me? Loud
We can
and
hear
clear.
you.
Okay. So on these men of value programs, the last event we say Dabuko was talking and saying that how men are broken, how this, how that, you know. So I was asking that, is it that we are putting way too much attention on men, whereas we should be focusing on we should also be focusing on young men? Because it's like, not to put it in a bad way, but it's like you're focusing on too much on rotten apples, whereas we should look at the seeds, at how young men are being brought up. Because where I'm living now, it's not necessarily where I live. It's the mindset that we youngsters have. It's saying that a woman must not disrespect you. A woman, if she comes and disrespects me, let's say I do go after a woman asking for her numbers and she says no. Many boys believe that they have a right to hate her because either way she disrespected me in a way. That's the perception that we kind of grow up thinking that and saying that if a woman disrespects you, we have got to hit her or abuse her in some sort of way. So is it that society must start teaching young men at an early age, saying that no, there is no excuse for you to hit a woman? Because I really believe that it's useless to teach older men to saying that don't hit a woman, whereas you could have taught that young men to not hit a woman at a young age, because that is how the generation revolves. Because now we are focusing too much on men, but young men, we are not focusing on that. That's my 2 cents.
Good point, Aaron. I think we've had a few speakers, and even when we get the group sessions with males and females, the point that always comes up is, at which point do you intervene? And I think it's been very clear that the intervention about being a man is exactly what you're saying, is that it starts from day one. Once you're out of that womb, once you start breathing, the values through society, through your family, have to be put in there. To try and change course of a ship is very complicated. And if you're trying to make a U-turn last minute, you're going to hit whatever it is you're going toward. And that is part of the challenge. And then partly then what we try to do, Aaron, and that's why we're so glad that we have younger people than myself on this program, is that we want to be speaking and be engaging early on. And the opportunities are always there for us within our community. And the reasons why we talk about starting where you are is to be getting the right behaviors in men at a young age. So if you go and watch a soccer game, it's a bunch of 8-year-olds. When they see two parents fighting because one's goal didn't count, the other one's didn't count, there's a problem. You've taken kids to go play a game of soccer. The parents are having it out. What message are you telling the kids? You know, so even something as entertaining as that is an opportunity to intervene on right behavior, and parents go and do that. So we'll look at this, and I know through other programs there were things in school that we try to do. Being a syllabus in the school would be tricky, but there are many avenues that we're looking at as men of value to say, where are the touch points that we can be involved in? And I think that's why we like having multiple platforms, so that the message can be entrenched as early as possible, consistently throughout many facets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good point.
Absolutely. Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a bit tricky. I think one of the challenges that we have is that we stuck in a feedback loop, because a lot of where young people learn how to, like, this kind of mentality is from observing it, right? So I think there is a certain level of need for us to focus on fathers and grandfathers and uncles and like older men too, because a lot of the young people learn that kind of mentality through observation of how their role models are kind of handling situations. So I think it requires an approach that considers both. younger and older men.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Avella, always the case. As we come to the end, all the hands go up. Let's start with Avella and then Molemo. Did we lose Avella? Avella, you put your hand up. Is your hand down again?
Yes, it's up, sir. I think I didn't unmute my mic. But I'm working at an NGO, and my age group now is 0 to 18 years of children living positively with HIV. So in the past 2 years, I started a group named A Path to Manhood.
Oh,
But
nice.
it only focused on HIV and circumcision issues. But listening to you guys and these brilliant ideas that you're bringing up now, I think I'm getting a clear picture of what the program should seek to achieve, not only focus on one aspect of the entire thing. So I think that the timing came. I think me joining the group came at the right time, because I'm also trying to sort out my own issues, but at the same time wanting to impact on the young girls and boys' lives. So I think thank you for advertising this. I think it's going to benefit me going forward. Thank you a lot.
No problem. Thank you, Avella, and thank you for joining and coming on board. That was fantastic. And we would certainly like to help and be part of that process. The more we build this is going to grow. Very soon, in the next 3-4 months, we're going to have 50 people here, and then we'll have 150. I can tell you this is going to grow. Molemo?
So yes, am I audible?
Oh, you're audible, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what Josh and Aaron said. Where Josh said we must need to bring in the older people. It just reminded me of a situation I had at work last week, where during a lunch break, some of the older gentlemen were sitting with the younger guys as well, and they were talking about relationship issues. And I mean, there seems to be this consensus of, when they're having trouble, they were talking about infidelity, and there was this consensus of, yeah, infidelity is okay as long as it's well hidden. And I kind of challenged one of the elders in a respectful way, in a conversational manner, and I brought up my point that it's not okay if you have issues in the house. We had this conversation where I challenged him, but initially even the young guys were on his side. And when he started to think about what I was saying and question himself, I could see them questioning themselves. So it's not too late, as Aaron says, like just talk to the younger children, the younger gentlemen. I think, like Josh said, as younger guys, we emulate those who are older than us. So when you see an Uncle Vic start to question himself at that moment as well, you also start to question. You also start to look at it and say, actually, yes, maybe this person is good. Maybe this is wrong. So I think in a platform where we can bring that out and have someone younger, not too young or whatever, question the older people as well and give a different perspective. That's how younger people will learn. When they can see that, oh, a younger person, a person maybe in my age group, sees things differently and is able to change the older person's mind, maybe I am not completely lost. Maybe I should also start looking at my peers. Maybe I should also start questioning my own actions. And that's all I want to say.
Oh, nice one, Molemo. Nice one. You are the future voice. You are the leaders now and of tomorrow. So the idea that you can talk to authority and power fairly and honestly is something that you should be doing, particularly when whatever it is that you're saying is right. Because we must go back to remembering there's right and wrong. right? So well done for that, and that's excellent. And yes, that's why, you know, we want you young guys to come and hear these conversations and begin to start growing and judge and creating your values, so that those values, you know, turn you from males to men. And men have a very specific role to play in society. And when we conform to society that does not necessarily fulfill the roles that men are supposed to play, which is to protect, to provide. You know, we protect because they birth. They birth. And their birthing of us continues the species of human beings. If we do not control, or if we do not protect that species that produces human beings, we will be like the dinosaurs. We will be extinct. So when we see children who are the fruits of the future, and women being abused and say nothing, or when we act in a particular way that impacts what they are from an emotional point of view, right? Because that emotional point of view is going to have an impact on their bearing capabilities of children. Then we are not protecting the planet, the earth, the galaxy, the universe that keeps us in consistency. So let us continue to be a voice. Let us bring more people on here. And we will have a Men of Value event next month. We've scheduled it already. And let us continue the conversations around how we, this community of people that was here now, become better people and do less of hurting, harming women and children, either directly and intentionally that we know, or indirectly and unintentionally that we know. Derek, parting words? Teboko, parting words? We're over time.
I'll let Teboko go first though, come on. Oh no, I don't think he's talking. Well, look, I think, guys, thanks so much for the time. And, you know, one of the things we would want to consider, and I know Vic was speaking about how the numbers will grow, and that's definitely what we want to do. But growing numbers doesn't necessarily mean that this group will move into a non-safe space. So we will play it accordingly in terms of, do we have more sessions that we break? You know, if we're sitting at 300 people, could you raise your hand in front of 300 people and say you saw a woman get beaten up, she spent a week in hospital, now she's no more? You don't want to say that in sort of forum, or that you know, you spoke to someone so badly that, you know, they quit their job as a female because of what you said and so on. So we want to keep it a safe space. So Vic and I will always manage that issue around numbers, because part of the big objective we have is you come in here with something on your chest, you leave having discussed it. We might not have a solution, we might not have fixed it that day, but at least you've started getting it off your chest. So use this environment for that, and we'll guard it safely for you. We're together. And the other thing, guys, is that Men of Value doesn't have an age. We use the word men because we thought there's a big need to be gender linked in terms of what we're trying to do, but it doesn't have an age. And I think Aaron, Joshua, and I think Mbulelo might have even said it, there were a few discussions around the age issue. A person's age and their Men of Value worth or age are not equal. So the oldest guy is no more a man of value than the youngest guy. And so I'm very glad that we're having two-way communication. And I know that we're about to close, guys. I'm gonna try to say this quickly, but yesterday I watched the show and the ENCA, and they were talking about the strike that was supposed to happen today. In the audience were youth, were community, were everything. What became very clear is that in the strike, there was no consultation with communities and definitely no consultation with youth, which basically made the whole protest a bit null and void. It had certain, I haven't seen the reports in terms of how the strike went, but the importance of two-way communication. So that's why even for us, we want to be speaking at our age group. We want 10-year-old to speak the other way because they might have seen two adults punching each other's lights out over the last beer in a bottle store. Whatever it is, let's communicate both ways. And absolutely, when you mentor, you can mentor someone who's much older than yourself. Let's make that part of our objectives here. Say it's two-way, and we're all learning from one another. Great stuff. Thanks, guys. I know that time was has run away with us. I don't know if Timber wants to say something else, but we will have these sessions. However many we feel are required, do keep the communication channels open and look out for anything we send out along those lines. But let's keep what is beginning to really pick up momentum and build it into a men of value machine. Thank you.
Absolutely. Tabako, you put your hand up. Should we give you the last second or two?
Just a second. I want to say thank you very much to the young guys, Aaron and everyone. I think this is a platform that we also need to use it to inspire and listen and learn from them, because of we might be getting older, but we need to get the young generation to also step up and engage with us on what we are doing wrong and how we're doing it. I'm happy that it was explained that Men of Value doesn't take age, like my chance, let's talk. So we engage with any young man that comes forward and show interest in changing the status quo on how men and women are treating each other. And I say thank you very much to Aaron. I'm just worried with the friends that he keeps that sees beating up a woman as showing your strength. So one day I'd love to engage with that group of men to say it doesn't make you a man to beat up a woman because they don't want to give you their numbers. But thank you very much for this session, and I'll join the next session. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, gents, for coming through. Have a wonderful rest of the week and stay safe. And let's continue to be men of value, and let's continue to call out what we believe is not and cannot be justified in our name. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good stuff, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. Great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Thank you for watching this ValueEd on the go recorded live session. If you enjoyed this session and would like to learn more, please head through to valueed.co.za/members. By becoming a member, you will be able to join our live and interactive sessions. This will allow you to ask the host questions, but also meet our other ValueEd family members who are part of this course. You will get access to all of our on-the-go recorded live sessions, as well as our other ValueEd sessions, including the Mogul Masterclass, Leadership Masterclass, and Career Discussion Academy. So, we hope that you decide to join the ValueEd family by heading through to valueed.co.za/members. Until then, we hope that you stay inspired to make better choices for tomorrow.